but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Typically, it's going to lean indica. If you try to breed, it's going to typically lean towards the indica side of it. But you can have some sativa dominant as well.
I really like the indicas. Like you mentioned that Afghani, I'm like, man, that's exactly what I need to like slow my brain down just a little bit because I'm already all over the place a lot of times. But and you got to get the right medicine. And sometimes, I can't remember what gelato was, but I remember the smell of that stuff, the terpenes in it, and what I got from it was just absolutely great. And I don't even know if that's even like I don't know. Gelato sounds like, our Italian ice cream, but what do you know about gelato? Do you know anything about that particular strain or no?
The regular gelato, I thought it was sherbet and Girl Scout cookies is what I thought it was. And it's an indica. It was an indica dominant.
See, now
it's the
same.
It's the same gelato. You're talking fucking San Francisco gelato, then we're talking indica dominant. But I've always, before it was called gelato, it's called Larry Bird. What they used to call it. So I don't know. Maybe it's not the same, but gelato's, it's the indica dominant. Sherbet, fucking Girl Scout cookies, Thin Mint Girl Scout cookies, I believe is what it was. The two crosses that came up with that. Yeah, that gelato was a big. I mean, it was a very popular strain. Big strain.
Yeah. This one came out of California for sure. But now, you mentioned terpenes. Is there just like one or two of those, or there? I guess there's probably more than that, isn't it? What do you know about terpenes?
Yeah, like over 5%. You get some really good danky bud over 5%. 4%, you can have some good. You know what I mean? Some good buds, but really good flavor and smells and shit coming, above 5%. And you can get that in your testing at your dispensary. They should have that on file to where you can look at the testing on it and it should tell you what the terpenes are.
So you can.
And it should have a list of what each terpene is in each strain. And that's kind of what, like you said, as far as what makes it indica and what makes a sativa. Those terpenes, and I don't know how many there are, but there's several of them, and that's what determines.
Now, see, that makes sense to me right there. I've never heard it explained like that. But the plant, I've always heard it called Cannabis sativa. But is there a difference? Is there? I don't know if you'd even know that part. Shit, But is there a Cannabis indica and a Cannabis sativa, or is it just all under that? Or is it just
there's a Cannabis sativa, Cannabis indica, and Cannabis ruderalis as well.
What is that third one? Well, I've never heard that before.
The ruderalis, but that's typically like when they come up with those autoflower seeds that we were talking about earlier, the one and dones.
Yeah.
Basically, it's typically where those genetics come from. They've crossed those genetics to where, like, if you're in Siberia, Russia, something like that. So I'm saying every continent has cannabis, bro, and it grows in every condition. But there, they don't get a lot of summertime, so they don't get a lot of growth. So it's not it's not photocelled. So no matter what the light does, it's going to flower and it's going to put off and it's going to try to seed. It's going to try to carry on its genetics to the next year, no matter what the sun is doing, because it's been in that condition for so long in that environment that it knows it only has X amount of time to grow, to flower, catch some pollen from the seeds, and to fall to the ground so they're ready for next year, so they're able to carry on to the next, to the next season, and that's where ruderalis comes in. So you'll typically find them in like Siberia, colder climate, mountainous climates. They're small plants. They're a lot smaller. They don't grow very much. And like you said, no matter what light you give them, they're going to flower no matter what in X amount of weeks.
Well, we're talking about terpenes and these, landraces, and now, what about color? Is there a correlation between, like, say, purple and a particular terpene, or is it different than that? Or do you know?
I'm sorry, what was that, man?
Well, the color of the plant. You see some buds that have purple and some that have pink and some that are yellow and green. And I mean, what makes that? Is that associated with the terpenes?
Nah, typically not. It's more either genetics or environment. Like the purple color, if you reduce the temperature, a lot of your cannabis plants will turn purple. The leaves on them will turn purple. I mean, there is some exceptions that some that just won't do it. A lot of, depending on what the genetics are of the plant. So a lot of it is environment and then genetics as well. But the terpenes is, that's going to be like your crystals and your frost and whatnot, and the oils, essential oils that the plant secretes.
See, there you go off, stepping off into a deeper part of it right there.
There's even you can look this one up too. It's a really cool plant. These people stashed these seeds behind like a stove for years, and they discovered these seeds and grew them. And it's called the Pinkman goo. And literally, whatever they did to those seeds causes retardation in the plant to where literally that it like secretes puddles of terpene. So instead of it just secreting it throughout the plant, it can't shut it off. So pools of it will pull up on the leaves and stuff to where it's it's a pretty wild little plant. It'd be something that you could look into as well as if you're interested in the terpenes and all that good stuff. But yeah, that negates as far as the couch lock or the euphoric feeling. The terpenes, they're starting to find out that plays more an effect than the THC and the CB does as far as what the terpene combination is, as far as your mood enhancers and all that good stuff.
I've been seeing them put that percentage on there on some strains, like on some of those lab results. I think you talked about that a little bit ago, but like if you look at it online, it says like whatever percent. And I've not seen that until recently, so that's pretty new. That's getting newer than buying some brick weed from the corner.
Man, just the mycotoxin testing that's being done on the legal market's helping out. You back in the day, you'd smoke some shit, get a sore throat, or you know what I mean, get laryngitis, and fucking throat cancer and shit. It could have been from that last bag you got, or it could have been from the Copenhagen.
Yeah.
Dig? But the testing and stuff, it's come a long way as far as that. And what a lot of people don't realize too is it's just like the lettuce. It's a plant. It can get E. coli. You can spread it the same thing. It's a living plant that is susceptible to those same diseases that carry on to humans too. So there's a lot that goes into it, man. Especially if you're doing it commercially and then selling it to medical patients as well. I mean, there's a huge liability.
I mean, just one, you're talking about toxins that are put into it. I mean, I'm sure there's, got to be chemicals used in some part of the process, or does it have to be? I don't know. What do you think? Like bug killers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pesticides, man, there's a lot of people that, since the legal market's become legal too, that's another big thing. You're talking about the mycotoxins and stuff. Yeah, the pesticide, that's a huge. So, I mean, you can literally damage, injure somebody one time, one use, and you can injure them for life. So yeah, it's good. They do a lot of tests. Here they do testing for it to make sure it doesn't hit into the market. But it does happen, of course. But there's nothing. Just like in any other industry, you have a threshold of rat poop and what you can have in your food and whatnot, and it does get through. But for the most part, it's a lot better than the brickweed that we don't know how it got here. How it used to be.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes I kind of miss all the hard work you had to go into to get a joint. You need an industrial grinder to get that shit broke up,
Or like the voyage of the Mimi just to score a bag back in the day. Like if you weren't in your normal habitat or you're out of town working or something, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna spend this whole week. I'm here for 2 weeks. I'm gonna spend a week trying to score a bag. You know, and then literally a day before you leave town, you end up scoring a bag. Then you never end up going back to that town. This generation and the ones growing up with seeing that weed's legal, they'll never understand the struggle, bro. And I don't know. I think sometimes once you establish that line back in the day, I don't know, it was more loyal, and I don't know. I just seeing it legal now, you just see. I don't know. You just see a lot. I see a lot of things that I don't like about it. You know, when money gets involved in anything, it fucks it up. And you see that with the cannabis industry, man. It's just like, fuck. They've allowed money to get involved into it, and they're fucking it up, man.
Well, and up there, you know, we've been sharing some articles back and forth, and I saw another follow-up on it again, where that guy got arrested that killed those 4 people, maybe. I think it was 4 people. You know, of course, you know, it was corruption to get it to that level, and we talked about it on one show. I don't think we got to produce that thing. But there was, you know, there's a lot of corruption into the system there. But it's a great thing. You're going to have some problems. That's it. You know, you're going to have problems. But I want to go back to this genetics thing for 1 second, because I noticed with farming down here, and I've got to be around a lot of it, with rice and soybeans and corn, just because I got to work in the Delta some and talk to old men in coffee shops. And they were talking about seeds that they purchase are, I mean, these things like work with a specific pesticide. I mean, they're so genetically engineered. I mean, it's just like you got to plant it on a certain day, and you know, you got to pull it out a certain day. You have to put a certain amount of, you know, of their pesticide or whatever the hell kind of shit you got to spray on there. But, you know, people are doing genetic stuff with cannabis as well, I'm sure. But just from what I see, it's not that soulless as that, is it? I mean, you know, we talk about there's some negativity in the cannabis industry, and by God, we could probably talk about that for a couple of hours. But I mean, is it that soulless yet? You know, where you got to buy a seed and buy, you know, the special juice to put on that seed to make it grow, or is it still a little bit wide open for people?
No, it hasn't gotten to that stage. And I know what you're talking about, or buy seeds and then you can't regrow them. I've seen people try to tell you that you couldn't do that, and you know, that's just whatever. But no, it's not like that. The things I see is here that I see is pollution is a big one. And it's common, I guess, now, is just basically screwing over the worker. You know, it's not a well-regulated industry here. So, you know, the propensity to screw somebody over is, you know, open, and it's easy here. It seems like there's not a lot of backing by the state officials and whatnot. So those are probably the 2 biggest things. And like you said, yeah, there was, you know, a quadruple murder, and it's not the first one. You know, there's been several others to where, you know, they're so lax with the laws, they're not even checking the very basic security systems. You know, they're not checking, you know, we're paying them money for licensing every year, you know, and we're paying them tax money on, you know, huge amounts of taxes on this product and stuff, and yet they don't even come out to ensure that the very basic, you know, security needs are being met at these facilities. You know, and they've had a problem with ownership laws. You know, there's, you know, certain people that own, you know, 80 different grows, you know, where they're ghost owners, to where people from out of state can come in and run the grow and just basically have a local resident as the owner of it. And you have cartels here and whatnot. So yeah, they've definitely, the state is definitely dropped the ball when it comes to oversight.
Well, yeah, you talked about workers there. Let's jump there for a minute. Let's just say that I was, let's say I just graduated high school, and the only thing I've been thinking about for 2 or 3 years is going and working for a guy like you, or someone who has a grow operation, and the most entry level job that I could get there. And what would a career path for someone that wanted to do that? Not own one. They don't want to own it. They're not that level. They just want to go in and work in the industry. Where do you start, and what does it look like?
Well, right now in the industry, man, what I see a lot of is, like, if that kid came in there, the first bad thing is they'd probably pay him as a 1099. as a miscellaneous 1099, which, I know it's probably not legal, but it's probably what they'd want to do. So for one thing, if the kid doesn't know anything about taxes or how any of that works, he's going to be behind the eight ball right off the get. So I see that's the first thing that I see a lot of. There is no career path. It's just basically they're going to use you for labor, just like a farm job would be.
Well, I mean, did they learn about the principles of how to keep stuff alive? I mean, I guess there would be a certain threshold for someone.
Oh yeah, you definitely learn about the production. If you're not familiar with growing, you definitely learn how to propagate, to clone, to keep stuff alive, appropriate. Your parts per million on your feed, and definitely you'd learn all that as a trade as well. But as far as you're talking making a career path, no, it's more of a job path. Because even if the big thing with this, and I'm sure it's probably a lot of industries, is problem solving. You can read a book all day long on how to grow something, man, but it's just what do you do when shit goes wrong? You're going to cut down the whole crop because, bugs got in there, or are you going to be able to actually address that problem and spray something on there that's not going to kill your patient, but it's going to be able to mitigate the bug infestation. So it's more of a problem-solving deal. So it's something you're going to learn over time. And the way the industry is, man, there's just not enough time. It's so cutthroat with the money part. They just, like I said, they're willing to pay you as a 1099. And, I mean, that's just a contract. They're not withholding any taxes, so you're probably not getting health insurance either. It's rare that, it's an employee-based. And as far as a career path, I mean, the most you'd be able to do is become the master grower, over time.
Well, I guarantee you this, if you work as a 1099, when it comes tax time, you're going to be, if you hadn't taken all that money out and just spent all, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, and a lot of them don't really, nobody explains it, Like you said, a kid coming out doesn't understand it, and that's why you see a lot of younger people getting taken advantage of, man. And that's what, like I was telling you, kind of like all of our employee-based and all that, everything's paid. They get insurance, all that good shit. But yeah, as far as the career path, yeah, becoming a grower and whatnot, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things you can learn as far as that, but I ain't gonna bullshit anybody. You know what I mean? It's literally the way the market is going, it's gonna be a job to where it's just like, growing corn or something like that. And the only good thing is that you have to have more of a quality control with cannabis than you do with corn. But eventually, just like they did with corn in California, they have yeast and whatnot that secrete THC and CBD now, so you don't even have to grow a plant to get the chemical. They have a yeast that will produce it now. So I imagine it'll be something different. But yeah, as far as the farming part of it, man, I don't know, maybe I'm pessimistic because I've seen it the old school way when it was illegal and how tight it was and how good it was. And then now you see it to where it's just so perverted since money's been involved. As soon as they learn your method or whatever, they're kicking you out, firing you, and then hiring somebody for $15, $20 an hour to run your game plan. And that's just how cutthroat it is. Most owners of these businesses look at the bottom line. And that's how that's the bad thing about introducing money into this business. It just sucks, man, because the end result is that the consumer, the patient, is the one that suffers.
That's most certainly true. I've seen the way stuff, the market. It's like, say in 2013 till, say 2017 or 18, man, it seems like there was a huge glut of weed in California because, man, they were shipping that shit to Arkansas like crazy. I mean, you could buy, an ounce for really great shit. I'm talking about shit that was just unbelievable for $200. And of course, there was times in the area here where you had to pay, that much for just what they would call loud, So like, there's the what I'm trying to talk about now is the glut or the lack of a glut basically the supply, the demand for weed right now versus what can be produced. What does that look like?
Oh, there's huge amounts. I think the last time I seen the feds come on the news here, they came out and I think Oklahoma was leading the country in exporting throughout the country. Excuse me, for cannabis. So there's a huge surplus here. It's caused the market here to crash. I mean, pretty much not crash, but it's a lot lower than what it should be. And it kind of goes back to that baseline, with the state. There's no oversight as far as now you can't get a license, and they've stopped a lot of it. But, for the first 4 years, they didn't have any oversight, and it was just wild, wild west. And there's a huge supply. So, yeah, you've seen the price per pound. I mean, it's low compared to what it was in a state to where they had more regulation. So, and that affects the bottom line. And like you said, that'll make a businessman sell tainted weed. It'll make him screw over his employees just to get to that bottom line.
Yeah. Yeah, because I, as an outsider, I think of it as, as a consumer, probably different than you. That's why it's interesting to learn it from that other perspective. And it's they must. This is what you know about. California was the first state to go medical and probably recreational too. I think, if not Oregon was, but how much? I wonder. Do you have any idea of how much weed they were producing over there in California?
Oh man, I have no clue.
It had to be a lot. I mean, is your impression that like everywhere in the world in the country had weed from California?
Oh yeah, for sure. And then right after California, then Oregon, when Oregon had all their, and here it's kind of like Oregon, like what happened in Oregon. They just went wild west, and the market went up for just a little bit, and then it's down, and it's never recovered. So, yeah, and then it was Oregon, and then when Colorado legalized, and Colorado, and then Oklahoma, now Oklahoma's distributing throughout the country. And I think Arkansas seen what was going on, and they did the exact opposite. They went on the other spectrum of it and tightened it down so much. I can't believe you guys aren't allowed to grow your own. I mean, that's kind of half the point, is to not have to rely on somebody else to grow your own medicine. That's kind of half the deal, I thought.
Well, it was in the original bill, but to get it passed, and we were the first red state, I think, to pass it, and we were lucky to get what we got for sure. But now I'm surprised. But now they had another legalization bill that was up this past voting period back in November, but it was so even normal was like, probably wouldn't vote for it. Because it just, I think it was biased toward the distributors, the dispensaries and growers and consumers were getting screwed. That's basically what it boiled down to. So, but now it does suck that you can't grow, because that would be really good for society anyway. I mean, kids need to learn how to grow stuff. I mean, I remember the first time I ever tried to grow something on my own. Of course, I did it with my grandfather and all that kind of business, but I didn't think about everything. And I went and got some tomatoes, and I planted them in my backyard where I was living at in a college town, but it was under shade tree. And, man, I produced the most beautiful tomato plants you ever see. They're big and dark green, but they didn't have not one damn tomato anywhere. No fruit, buddy. So, I mean, you got to know what you're doing. Somebody there that's in that facility has got to know what the hell they're doing to get this thing going. So we talked about the worker entrance and how it's probably not really good, but, someone who really knows how to do certain things probably thrive in this business. What is it that you've kind of hit around the edges of it here, but what is it you see in the future of this business? I mean, what is the person going to have to do to stay alive in it? What's going to change? What's not going to change? What's your view of what's going on with the industry?
As far as how many years out are we talking? I see AI taking over the industry. I mean, I know that they have greenhouses now that are fully automated that do away with the worker altogether. I mean, I definitely see that being the future as far as that goes. And I could see
it's
an
taking
AI.
over.
You know, I could see me sitting at home because right now with the system I run, man, I can start watering as I'm headed in to my shop. I can start watering from my phone, computer, and internet connection. I can log into the computer system. If I wanted to, I could adjust any of the lighting systems, any of the ventilation systems, any of the feed systems, all remotely. And then they have robots now to where literally you can prune cannabis plants, from a camera and a joystick at home, to where one person's doing it. And that's where I see the future being, is getting it away from, just like any other farm job. The less amount of energy they can put into it, the more they're going to get out of it. That's about the only, that's kind of the threshold we're at with food. And it's kind of, I think it's going to be with cannabis. And then if that's going to be only for people that prefer to grow it, then like you said, in Berkeley, I believe it was, they found different yeasts that are secreting THC and CBD. So if you do edibles and stuff like that, I'm sure you'll probably be getting it from a culture rather than a plant.
Wow, I was going to ask you about that yeast. I was thinking that's basically a bacteria. I don't know what that even means, but it's something like that. That's crazy. But now, let's oh shit, I dropped something there. But let's talk about that. The type of maintenance there. With the I spilled my glass of tea right here. I'm so sorry about that. Hey, Antonio, fix the problem. No problem. I don't know what I was going to say. I know it was about the bacteria, though. Kid, I lost my brain. I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. That's what happens
you're
sometimes.
good, man. But the future of it, like the short future of it, man, I could see it, being, like you said, low entry level jobs. As far as the career path goes, man, I just, now you see a lot of, stoners, people that have smoked their whole life, people maybe that grew in the black market and stuff like that. So it's more of a culture deal. You know what I mean? Like all the people that I see that stay with it, man, they're not in it for the money. You know what I mean? It's, they make decent money, don't get me wrong, but it's not like they're, trying to buy a house in Beverly Hills. They're content with their little farmhouse or, whatever they're doing. But you don't see, a lot of them, they'd like to be a master grower one day, but you're talking problem solving. That takes years and years of looking at the same thing and seeing some, you know what I mean? So that's what I was saying. I tell people up on Front Street that it's, this is what it is, and it's farming, man. They've reduced it to nothing. These days, it's not a valued trade, so there's not, they're paying millions of dollars for somebody to play a kid's game, and the guy that's producing the food gets shit on.
And and the big boys can make money off of it, because if it's like farming, then there's probably futures. People probably selling stuff short and long and trying to make $1 off of it. And I'm not just talking about $15 an hour or even $1 million a year. I mean, there's people that want to make some money off this. They want to line their pockets with it, for sure, because that it's big money. I mean, I was looking at the amount of revenue that these states that have passed it are turning in, and I think Arkansas is $1 billion. Whatever it was, which is a lot of money for something that was, it's in its first year. I believe that's what it was, $736 million or something like that. It was a lot of money, and it probably took away from some drinking that was going on too. But now you mentioned something a little bit ago, and I know I'm so sorry with my ADHD, but this was that question that whenever I spilled my glass, I forgot what I was going to ask. But one of the things you mentioned there was like, robots and, you driving something like you would a drone I think even heart surgeries are performed from Sweden, and happening in Houston with fiber optic cables. But, you mentioned, these robots inside there pruning the plants, maybe a person operating at the end of it, maybe AI, who knows. But, I don't know. Maybe I'm just an old stoner that you were talking about a few minutes ago there, but, I mean, there's still, what is the market for, like, outside grown stuff? Is that just something of the old days? I mean, what goes on with growing it out there in the dirt? Is that a good investment? Is it better weed, or is it better where you're at? I mean, just give me a thumbnail of what you see growing something inside.
No. Outdoor weed is valued by society as a lower quality, as an inferior product. Right now, that's just where society's at with it. They want the endo hydro. You know what I mean? They don't want, because your indoors typically a brighter green, a lighter green. That's where your outdoors a darker green typically. And then outdoors, you're fighting Mother Nature with pests and, funguses and bacteria and whatnot. So it's easier to control the environment inside. So it's cheaper.
And you can purchase the soil you want and have it in a controlled environment. From what I understand, like we talk about land graces, but I've seen when they're like, say, if you set your up a closet grow system or whatever, and when you start looking at soil, that becomes something totally another big conversation. Of having the right.
Man, it's huge, dude, and like a lot of people don't realize too. Like you can look on some of them soil bags, man, and it's downright illegal to put that shit outside in your state. And that's what I was talking about with the pollution earlier.
Yeah.
Like it's got chemicals in it, not just California, they ban fucking everything. But I know soil, that it's a big no-no. It's for indoor use only. You read the bag and it says that. Why is soil for indoor use only? Oh, it's because they have all these chemicals in this shit. And like you said, where you just set it and forget it. What are the implications in the long run? We don't know yet, you know what I mean? But I'm sure it's probably going to have something.
So you just explained to me a lot of debt, too, that you would take on. Because if you got to deal with that, and it has to go through a specific sewage system, wastewater system, and probably be treated, that's a whole other infrastructure. I mean, if you got to do all that, with a fertilizer.
We use an RO, and then it's not, and a lot of it too. As soon as you have that cannabis tested, that pretty much releases liability.
Oh, I got you.
As far as if something does come up, that's kind of the bad thing with that too, because you just go back to the testing. Like right out of the gate, we had a company here that was caught fabricating testing results. So, who's to say that some shit got through that you probably shouldn't have just because of greed as well.
Well, so greed is the ultimate, human condition for sure.
It's the mother of all inventions as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, again, there's somebody right now that has $1 billion or want to invest in somewhere, and of course, I guess in some ways it's great if they invest it in the cannabis industry, ultimately, but they're going to want a lot more money than $1 billion out of their investment. So, it's nothing for free, I guess you could say. People that throw that money around, they're going to want a healthy return. Most people want around 20% margin, gross margin. They're like, or maybe they'll take less if they got a big business. But
the problem now is that it's the banking situation is not legalized on the federal level. So, Walmart, Walmart's happy with a 3 to 5% on the retail side because they're not worrying. That's what a lot of the excuses I hear on the the owner side of it are like, well, what happens if they come in and tax me? The feds come in and tax me at this percentage, then I'll have the money to pay it. So there is some to blame as far as that too. As far as the federal law, a lot of them are trying to make their money and get the fuck out before the feds jump on their ass. Because I've seen it to where the feds can tax you, 70% and over 100% of what you made. Literally, I've seen somebody that been taxed 110% of what their company made, and a lot of the write-offs and stuff, you know, it disqualifies a lot of your write-offs on the dispensary side because the feds still consider it a, you know, basically an organized crime syndicate, basically.
Exactly.
So, you know, that's why you see a lot of people that aren't willing to invest in the long term too, because they don't, you know, like you said, you don't know what the feds are going to do from it, you know, from administration to administration. One guy says it's legal, the next guy says, no, fuck you, you're going to prison for life. And then in 4 years it's changed again. So until the feds do something as well, you know what I mean? And I could see it being unstable like it is. And every state, I'm sure, has issues with it.
I would have figured that it would have been legal at the federal level. I mean, there was a big move in government just a few months ago that made federal convictions, which are not most of the convictions that are out there with cannabis. It was mostly state, from what I understand. So it was a nice concession from the federal government, but you know, this is something that should have been legalized at the federal level, in my opinion. Of course, you know, 15 years ago, I told you that it was insane and would never, ever, ever happen where I live at. But things changed, and when it did change, it changed rapidly. But what do you think would happen if at the first of the year, it's not going to happen because it's just politically wrong, but what if it were to be legalized or at least declassified from a Schedule 1 and it was just removed, like alcohol? It would be operated like alcohol. What would happen with the cannabis industry, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think you'd see like big tobacco. You'd see something like that start to form. And like you've seen it in Colorado, too, with the alcohol companies, you know, trying to legislate the legislature's there to not legalize it and whatnot. That's probably the holdup. Some, you know, another market holding it up, basically. But if they did it federally, I could see it going more towards the, you know, your corporate farm type situation, to where you'll have one huge grow, you know what I mean, that distributes to everybody. Kind of like your model, how Arkansas is set up is what I'd see it, you know, becoming, something like that. To where you have big money, you know, it would help out the little man. The people that are in it, that are dedicated to doing it, would probably still be in it and thrive in it. But I doubt you'd see a lot of new people get into it. And the new people you did see get into it, I think it would be corporate. Because then, you know, you don't have that guy breathing down your neck. Are they going to come raid us? Is it, you know, it's still iffy. Is it legal? Is it not legal? Once they legalize it and you don't have that threat of the feds coming and raiding you, you'll see a lot more money being invested in it, into the industry, than you'll see those billion-dollar farms that are run by robots and shit go up.
Well, you know, you mentioned that. Of course, you know, like say in the tech days, everybody wanted to create a business that Microsoft or Google or Apple wanted to buy. Do you think that it would? You think it would be like that? That everybody would be purchased up by big companies pretty quick? You know, maybe even in the future, maybe in the next 5 years, maybe something like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. In the short term, yeah, that's definitely the business model. I mean, definitely you want to build up your business here and then sell it to, you know, a bigger company, like you said, that's maybe, you know, in a different part of the state that's wanting to, you know what I mean, open up shop on, you know, this side of the state. Or I know, you know, there's two big cities in my state, and you see them now, like a lot of them want to have a base in Oklahoma City and a base in Tulsa, you know, just so distribution's easier, you know, whatnot, logistics and all that good stuff is cheaper for them as well. So yeah, I mean, I see it in the short term. I could see that working, but if the feds do it federally, you know, and the licensing and all that, it just depends on how they structure it, man. You know, if they structure it like Oklahoma did, it's going to be an all-out, just a sideshow. But if they actually do it like you guys did, or, you know, in between Oklahoma and, you know, in between what you guys did, it'd probably be good for the industry. It may even, you know, help secure the workforce and whatnot. Because I know you can't go work at a morphine factory if you're a convicted felon or you're a child molester. You know, the very least they do is a background check on you. and stuff like that needs to be done in this industry. So, but I could definitely see them going towards the corporate model.
Well, and it'd probably continue to raise the quality up for sure. Now, that's very interesting. I mean, this is, just to think about what would happen if that were to happen overnight. I mean, it wouldn't happen overnight, but if the laws could change overnight, because you see what happens with stuff like this. We've seen 1,000 things that got legalized or de-illegalized, basically like cigarettes, out there.
Yeah, if it happened overnight, any state that's illegal right now, there would be people lined up at the fucking border with their vehicle loaded full of fucking pot. So any state that's illegal now, you know what I mean? That would be super bad. It'd be bad for law, it'd be bad for everybody because they'd miss out on their revenue and all that. But yeah, overnight would be a terrible thing.
I guess it is. I guess it is pretty smart to put a little bit of tax on there because everything. I mean, if you're going to get good quality, you're going to pay a little extra. That's the way I look at it. And I expect that the government's going to get their cut. If I'm going to pay them, or when I say government, I mean everybody else in the society or community around you. But I wonder, with alcohol, which we need to talk about the difference between alcohol and cannabis. They're not the same thing. I mean, people say, well, I'm gonna act like people a lot of times compare them to be the same thing when they are not the same thing at all. But what are you talking about the negative aspects of the cannabis industry? I mean, there's been some studies, and I hate it whenever I see them because I go, damn, that goes against everything I believe. But what about the negative stuff that may come of people, in particular, smoking pot? But there may be other things as well. But what are some negative things to look at with pot? I hate to even talk about it, but I mean, we all know there's got to be something. But I had never figured out what it is yet myself. What do you think?
Well, yeah, the how you consume it's a big one. Smoking it, of course, you're going to raise your blood pressure. It's not going to be good for you. Smoking anything is not conducive to good health, no matter if it was grass from outside or anything. So how you consume it, yeah, that's definitely a big part of it. The heart situation, yeah, there's, like you said, I've seen studies where, they prove that, yes, it causes different irregular heartbeats, different things like that. Mental, I know you can, it can cause mental issues as well, prolonged use. I know you can even go into a psychosis, people that have used it for years on years and then smoke it one night and then literally have a psychotic episode. So there's definitely implications to using it. It's definitely a psychoactive compound, so you definitely would want to take care in using it for sure. Just like when you take aspirin, you wouldn't want to, take a handful of aspirin. You would probably want to take it by the recommended dosage.
I think those are 2 or 3 points I want to just kind of break down real, because this stuff is immensely interesting to me. I mean, I've experimented with cannabis since 1986. So how many years is that? 36 years? 37? However long. I mean, it weaved in and out of smoking over the years. I've done better when I did smoke and not other things. Or use cannabis. You mentioned the heart. In fact, I went to a heart doctor a few years ago, and they put me on this stress test, and I did beautifully on it. Big beautiful. I'm the most beautiful ever. Anyway. But I was having some challenges, and the guy told me, he said, you need to quit smoking it. And I'm like, he's like, there's too many other options out there for you to be smoking this shit. So you made a good point with that. And I have seen, like, when you get older, like I am, I can't say how old you are, but it's easier to moderate more now than maybe if I would have been given it at vast quantities when I was young. Because it's older fellas, most of the time, they're still, if you've lived long enough to hit at least 50, then, it's a little bit different. You may get a little souse here and there, but you're not going to just smoke an eighth in a day, typically. Some people do, and they make it handle it, but most people don't. So there is something big, what you said about, your dosage, moderating. Of course, that's what the old word is, but the dosage amount is huge. And I don't know that it's easy to explain that with pot, because somebody can make him smoke. If you're used to that particular strain, if you've been smoking it all week, you could probably smoke 3 joints, where somebody that has never touched that strain before may just do 1. And maybe I'm wrong with that. I mean, what do you know? I'm kind of running around here, but there's the potency with pot, and how it gets you high, and how people measure it. A lot of people measure the urine. But what do you think about that, about dosage? I mean, how can you get used to it? I mean, people always talk about that with alcohol, but I don't even know if that's true or not. What do you think about that? What about dosage? Is it taking too much? Can you get used to it? Is there a good dose for individuals, or is it just something per individual? What do you think?
Oh, I think it's definitely per individual. And like you said, the more you do it, you build I think you build a tolerance to it over time as well. Like you microdosing it. Basically, if you smoke it every day, you're going to have to smoke more and more to feel the same effect as you felt before. So there's definitely, I think there is, as far as the dosing goes. And depending on if you smoke it, if you roll a 1 gram joint and smoke it, it's going to get you high, just for a little bit. But if you had a gram of activated THC and you ate it, you're going to be fucking high for a lot longer. And, back in the day when we had it, bro, we only had the option to buy a bag, and if, you bought a bag, you'd have to know somebody else that knew how to make butter or knew how to make the oil. And then you'd have to sacrifice that bag. It wasn't readily available to find clippings or to find, the trash part of the plant to recycle it to make the edibles and shit. That shit just wasn't available. I mean, if you seen somebody with fresh clippings, I mean, your ass could get turned into the FBI, you know what I mean? So that shit was never given to anybody or anything. So maybe the way people are using it too, see, before you say 90% of the people were smoking it to get high. Now that it's been legalized and that there's other forms of it available to the public, maybe 60% or 50% are only smoking it. And as time goes on and as different edibles come out, different, they got the vape pen now. So now, something that we had no idea about, they've had vaporizers, but now they got the oil that you vape instead of doing the biomass, the flower. They extract all that shit out, so you're getting just only the few chemicals that you're looking for, and then you vaporize them to where it's not, before it's combustible, so it saves on your lungs as well. So, I mean, just the legalization of it alone, that's why, I think a lot of these drugs need to be legalized just alone. I mean, look at what they've done to make it more beneficial. You can still roll up a joint and smoke it, and it's still bad for you and all that good stuff, but just like anything, they're going to have more successful results of changing people over time than doing it, just going out and banning smoking pot. You can eat it, and you can, shove it up your ass, do a suppository and all that, but you can't smoke it. But, just in time with invention and over time, I think it'll just get phased out. Because you see it with cigarettes. You see a lot less people smoking cigarettes than you did, when we were kids.
Oh, my God. Now, and hey, I remember this time of year. It's like December. Man, it was so damn hard to find a sack. You had to go pull a monkey out of an ass to get a sack this time of year. But now,
bro, it was like 3 days, and you're trading fucking coon fucking furs and all kinds of weird shit trying to score a bag. You're like, how the fuck am I gonna find a beaver tail and a fucking right leg of a coon, dude? This is not happening in the middle of fucking December, bro.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's crazy the shit we went through. Yeah, you're right, man. Now that you say that, I totally forget about it, man. The oh my.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so different now, man. Because you can go online, whatever.com, and order it and have it delivered to your house, man. If you would have told me, you know, man, just even as close as like 2008, you know, I mean, I was having severe supply issues. But now, you know, my God, you may have to drive to another county. And you get some shit, and it could be just the most nasty shit. You know, yeah, it's a good shit. And of course, you know, you always, if you got time, you wanted to sit around and smoke. People didn't understand this kind of stuff, but used to, you'd sit around and they'd smoke a joint with you, like in the 80s. I remember doing that. And then in the 90s and the 2000s, it changed, and you just got it and you left, you know.
But you had the 30-minute rule, the 2-joint rule, and all kinds of shit back in the day to make sure you weren't a cop, or like you said, to make sure you know nobody can drop the dime on your spot or what was going on, bro. I remember, and the pager, like you get a secret, you know what I mean, a page back and little secret codes on it and shit, and oh yeah, man, it was like I said, it was an adventure, just trying to get the bag to enjoy it, and then that was a whole another thing. And like you said, as far as then you start smoking it, and like, oh shit, can my neighbors smell it?
Yeah.
Oh shit, are they gonna call it in on me? Oh shit, what was that noise? You know what I mean? Because it was illegal, and literally everybody would be on your shit. So man, this generations and everybody coming after it, man, they got it made, and I'm glad for that. So maybe that's the good thing that's come out of legalization. You know what I mean? Maybe they won't have to go down that fucking dark alley and deal with fucking that weirdo.
Yeah, that fucking weirdo. And, you know, it's shady as fuck because, you know, not everybody would sell the shit. You know, back then you had to be one crazy son of a bitch for sure. You always get in jail. There's people locked up in jail, man, for like 900 million fucking years. You know what I'm saying? Just for selling an ounce or two. Well, there you go. So, man, what do you think about it, kid? What else?
I don't know, man. I think they need to legalize it federally. Like I said, maybe to help out a lot of people as far as getting it above board. Like Oklahoma, they're just gonna go. You're just gonna have to drag them along, you know, kicking and screaming before. There's so many outlaws, and I think the whole state here is just built on the outlaw mentality, man. Until they fucking force them to do it, you know what I mean? I don't think anybody here is gonna pay much attention to it.
Well, my problem with it is that even there's still a lot of people. There's a lot of holdouts right now that are like, you know, going against it because they remember that time, you know, in 1978 where they were shit-faced drunk. And they smoked a little weed, and they saw Jesus or something. And, you know, now they just hate it. They think it's the devil, you know. So, I mean, it's still that component out there, you know, and there's still a lot of skepticism about what it can actually do for people. And, you know, of course, you know, there are some people like, you know, Joe Rogan was talking about this with, you know, that to do cannabis, you have to be okay with being a little bit paranoid, you know. You know, you're gonna think some shit that you don't normally think. I mean, you know, when you spark up some really good smoke, man. And of course, it's a little bit different with an edible to me. I don't get that. I don't know. Maybe I just hadn't had the right edible. Man, some of the stuff that you get to experience, you know, psilocybin aside, but man, with cannabis, I mean, you know, there is. I think there's an opener of the mind right there too. I mean, there's things that you're going to experience mentally that you will not experience in everyday life. In my experience, what about you?
No, I'd agree that you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. You know, especially when you first start using it. You know, because it's definitely you know you started using it say when you're 20. You know, your mind had 20 years of building patterns, and all of a sudden you're throwing a wrench into it. So, I mean, yeah, there is some truth to being, you know, enjoying being uncomfortable a little bit as far as smoking it and whatnot. I can definitely see that.
Oh yeah, you're gonna experience some stuff, and paranoia is one of those things. You have to be okay with that. But now, like I know some people, you know, like some vets that I've talked to, and you know, my line of work is finding people jobs. And of course, a lot of times the VA system now in Arkansas gives people pot. But if you're not prepared for that, and you got the wrong kind of, we talked about this a little bit ago in terms of dosage. But if you got the wrong kind of mindset, and you're left to your own devices and you've never done it, yeah. I've seen some older people that, like you said, they're a little bit older and their patterns were set in a certain way. It can be a weird experience, but you need someone there to kind of help you with that, just kind of like I think you do with psilocybin. The first time, the first few times you smoke pot, man, that's a different thing. It's kind of like the first time people talk about smoking a cigarette, you feel like you're just laying on the ground doing nothing. You're probably even sick, throwing up. But pot didn't give me that. But what it did do was, at first, I thought that all I could do is just sit there in one spot and just think. But then I realized that it's more than that. There's some pain relief features with it. If you get up and get moving and out doing things, man, you can plant some gardens. You can do all kinds of shit. People do all kinds of shit smoking pot. So it's not just something to lay around in bed with, and it's not just something to party with. It's something that's it can be spiritual. I mean, I think that it just it allows your brain, for some of us, to slow down enough to look at a tree and see it blowing in the wind and go, wow, that's pretty fucking cool. Some invisible shit blowing a tree, and I'm getting to experience it right here and smile about it. That's not every experience.
And not only that, it's like a mental mirror. It allows you to look inward as well and have a little bit of humility about yourself as well. I mean, it allows you to think of, to drop that barrier as well. When you're stoned and you start thinking about something wild, like, well, yeah, I do act, you know what I mean? And it's some self-adjusting behavior that goes on when you're really, really high as well, I think. You know what I mean? It allows you to think about things that you probably wouldn't think about because of your ego. Your ego's not going to let you know what I mean? But you get really high and you're alone. Maybe that paranoia is just you looking inside and seeing some shit that you're not comfortable with that you need to address. Maybe that's what that paranoia is. I'm not sure. You know what I mean? I can't answer for you. I can only answer for me. But definitely there's medicinal use in it, I think, definitely medicinal use. And there's recreational use as well. It's good just to get stoned and sit around a campfire, get stoned with your buddies, and just have a fucking knee-slapping good time where it's just being silly. You know what I mean? That's fun as shit, too.
Yes, it is. In fact, that can be the most fun. Now, you're talking about this, back to the medicinal part. Let's come back to the recreation in a minute. I don't want to spend a whole night, but this is. But now, when you're you made that point there that you're having to deal with some shit. That's true. That you should be looking at. I think that's what a medicine does. It kind of helps you grow, but it's not the medicine that you get right now. Now, it may be in the future when things change, but the traditional way that the culture is about, it's about that. You're kind of
a lot of time, and a lot of time it's your behavior that's dictating your poor choices. Because normally it's a poor choice you're making, whether it's how you're eating or how you're treating people. It's typically it goes back to that, like, oh shit, I'm making poor choices. So yeah, I think it makes you look, like you said, you get really high, man, you look inward more often, or meditate, some people call it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's it's kind of it's not a fast track to do it, because you have to go into it with the right mood. And I think that you tapped into something there, because that's kind of what the whole pot culture has been about. It's been about, suggesting to people that it's a medicine and that different strains, different land races can get you to feel different things. And sometimes it's just fun. Like you said, sitting around playing guitar and, whatever, having a good time, laughing, just driving 10 miles an hour thinking you're driving 100. Sometimes course, that's not good these days. No, we're not encouraged that. But now, it's about having fun, but it's also the culture with pot is also say, hey man, slow down, sit there, lean up against a tree and stare at a leaf and burn a hole in it with your eyes, and just sit there and just chill out and look around you. Because if you're not using it as a medicine, as a way, in my mind, the people that I was around, this is the culture of pot back in the day whenever I grew up. It's like, man, this is some deep shit. If you take this shit here, you're going to see some shit that you may not have ever seen before. And it may be uncomfortable for you, but just remember that it's going to go away. And then you're either going to want to do it again or you're not. And that's the kind of way I was brought into it. And that's the way I look at it now, is that it's not for everybody, not at all times. So you may try it again later. Like you said, if you just had it with a bad experience where you had it with alcohol and you got a DWI and you also got a first time you ever smoked weed and you got busted with it. If you have some horrible ass shit with it, in different contexts, it may be different for you. And of course, like we talked about with psilocybin, is you almost need a shaman. That's kind of where we started out with saying a shaman. A shaman is somebody that we forget we need. We forgot all kinds of things that we need because we're all chasing these dollar bills all the time. I've got to chase so many per month or I won't be able to eat. But human society's not always been like that. There's been people out there that are healers that would, use ayahuasca or a mushroom or some cannabis to help people, deal with the complexities out there in a way that kind of gets you out of yourself. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I'd have to agree with you on that, man. And it seems like that with cannabis that maybe that's how we get it into the social norm, that's the sacrifice we got to pay with, the business side of it and that being the negative downside of it with the, the business and the greed and all that. But then on the other hand, it gets to the masses and maybe it does sort out some of these underlying deeper issues that we're having with society. Hopefully that's the way to look at it.
Well, it all boils down to money. We all know that. But if it doesn't do some of those other things, then there ain't no money there. But I think it will be. I think if it were to be implemented in a decent way, and I think that people are looking for it, but it's difficult. People say we want to treat it like alcohol in the workplace, and I know a lot of businesses now that are, because in Arkansas that little card has become so prevalent that people are. Lots and lots of people are smoking. We have jobs now, like if you're a welder in Arkansas, a year and a half ago, or even like, let's say a little bit further back, let's say end of 2019 before the pandemic. If you smoke weed and were a welder, you ain't gonna get no job unless you're working with yourself. You hear me? But now,
I heard that.
Now they'll hire the shit out of you. As long as you're not showing the same kind of signs that you would like with alcohol, if you're not just blazed the fuck out, then they'll hire you, and they're not going to test for cannabis, and that's huge to me, But I don't know. Maybe that's too fast. I don't know. I mean, well, what do you think about it? You see these studies of people, with driving and doing stuff. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, I think everybody should be able to enjoy it at home. I mean, we know that if you smoke it at night and go to bed and typically you wake up next day, you're all right, or when you're drunk and when you're high. So, you probably shouldn't be operating, machinery and shit that puts other people's lives in danger. And, just like you would with the prescription drug that you take, you don't get all Xanaxed out and go operate a heavy crane, or you shouldn't. It's the same thing with that, It's the same thing with that. Is you definitely need to, it goes back to that recommendation. I know no doctor is going to tell you to use it like that. You know what I mean? Get blazed up and go to work, or take an edible and go to work.
Well,
but the biggest deal as far as like them hiring places, I don't see any issue with it. Like you said, as long as they're not, on the job, high on the job, where it's creating an issue. I don't see what the problem is if he wants to, smoke weed on the weekends or, I don't think it's any of their fucking business. Not only that, the only way they can test for it is a blood test, so there's not even a surefire way to even test for it except, the long term.
That seems to be the problem. In fact, that's why a lot of people switch. They were like going, hey, well, I need to know if this person is stoned now. So they're not going by a test. They're training people on what signs to look for, like on their behavior and stuff, which is, it's okay with me to a certain degree. Because like you said, if you just do a piss test, they're going to look at you for 90 days, and a hair test is the same thing, 90 days or whatever, however much hair you got. On me, it wouldn't be very long at all because I got a shaved head. But I shaved my whole body if I had to go take a hair test too. So, but anyway, rock and roll. I wish we could have got O'Don to play with us tonight, but I don't know what happened to him. He I think if we can ever get on the same track, it would be fun. Because Don, I'm gonna tell you right now, he is an automatic laugh track in the background. Got to get him in the right mood though.
Yeah, it's a fine line with Don. Apparently, it's a fine line.
Fine fucking line. And he doesn't mind if we bust his balls because he knows it's fucking true. You know what I'm saying? I bust his balls all the time about it. I'm like, okay, you gonna be able to do a fucking show tonight, brother? But anyway,
yeah, you can tell the guy means well, and he's real as they come, man. He's a good guy. No doubt about it, man. Especially you start talking about something he likes, man, and cannabis is definitely one of those things he likes.
Cannabis and titties, I think is what. Yeah, man, it's been an honor, man. I appreciate you having a conversation with me tonight. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate you, brother. Give me a holler anytime, bro.
Yes, sir. Goodbye.
Later.